Hello and welcome to this video, which today is going to be talking you through some thoughts about transitioning back to school or back to work after the summer holidays for those of us that are extra sensitive. So if that resonates with you, then let's dive in. Okay, so before we jump in, just to share with you, in case you're new, my name is Nicola. I'm a yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and I absolutely love to speak, write, teach, and all sorts of things about self-care really for the highly sensitive and neurodivergent person. So if that is your bag and you're highly sensitive, or maybe you're neurodivergent, any way you identify as a sensitive is fine, then feel free to subscribe and join the channel. But for now, let's get stuck into this topic because it's a really important one and one that I speak about quite a bit. So you may be a parent, you may be a student, you may be somebody that's going back to work. Either way, it's maybe coming to the end of the holidays and you're thinking about going back to work or to school. Maybe you have a family too, and so you're living with other people that are also facing that transition too. And so there may well be a lot of anxiety around the change, around the new stuff coming up. For me personally, I have two children, a husband, and my two kids, they are 13 and 10 now. So I must also say, if you don't know, my whole household is highly sensitive and neurodivergent. So it's a neurospicy time. It's these transition points, isn't it? If you're familiar with what it is like to be in a sensitive, neurodivergent household, then you'll know that these transition periods are, tricky. I'm not going to put it any other way. They're tricky. As I said, there's that anxiety. There might be some excitement. Anxiety and excitement are very similar. There's a quote, and I'm not going to be able to credit the person, but anxiety is an excitement without the breath. And that is very physiologically true, they're very similar. So there might be both of those going on. And also, like I said, if you're in, and I'm pointing that way because my house is that way, if you are in a family and you've got children that are going back to school, it's not just your feelings about going back to work, it's everybody else, and if you're sensitive, you're perhaps going to be taking all of that on as well. It can be really exhausting and draining. So some thoughts then, and just to begin by saying I do not think that I've got it right by any means, but I have been playing around with this for a long time. My background is in education, so I was a primary school teacher for 10 years before this, so it kind of lends into understanding it from that angle as well. That's not to say that I've got it all down to a T, because I haven't, but just kind of drawing on these skills and my experience, more importantly, of having children that are neurospicy, me, myself, and what I need. These are the things that I think help me anyway, and hopefully they'll help you. So I mentioned this in the self-care video for this month, but just to reiterate, routines may have gone completely wacky over the summer period, and so it's really time to start getting those back in, or to start thinking about getting them back in if you haven't already. Maybe start with a sleep routine. You don't need to get it all nailed as if you're going to school tomorrow and just keep doing that until school begins. Just one element of the routine each day, just keep bringing it in slowly. That sleep routine, and I'll talk about this a lot, is really important, because if everyone's getting a good amount of sleep, it means that they're better prepared for the next day anyway. And a tired, sensitive, neurodivergent person is not a happy situation. So at least if we are resourced through good sleep, then that's a bonus. And if you struggle with sleep, let me know in the comments. I'm really happy to do a video around sleep. There's lots of tools that I can share around sleep, so do pop it in the comments if that's something you'd like me to speak to or share some tools with. Now, if you've got kids that do struggle with transitions, or maybe it's yourself, one of the things that I do, maybe not quite so much now, I will do it with, well, actually no, I do it, I just use different language, is before school starts, and it's usually no more than 2 weeks before, because there's a real fine line between too early and not early enough. I don't want it to be so early that we start having these conversations that they're anxious about going to school for too long, but you need a bit of time before going back to school to let these things settle in their system. And I find in that penultimate week is about the right time. So one thing we will talk about, getting to the point, is to run through things that will be different and things that will be the same. If you've got very young children or kids that struggle with communication, then you can use pictures, you can take photographs, you can use stories to help with this. My kids, we're at a really great age actually where we can do a lot of explaining and talking, and that works really well now. But thinking about what's going to be different so that they're prepared, but anchoring them in what's going to be the same or similar. For example, my 10-year-old, he's going to be going into a class that is the same classroom, it's the same teacher, largely it'll be the same children, but one of the differences is, because he's in a mixed age group, the older children that were in there last year will have gone, and the younger children will be coming in. Now, he will know this, but just to remind him that because of that, seating arrangements may be different, the displays will be different because it's the start of a new term, and so on. And if you haven't got children in school and that's, the school year is, you're completely oblivious to it, then you might just do the same with yourself. Like if you're going back to work, okay, what's going to be different? What's going to be the same? Maybe there's a new colleague. Maybe the route to work is going to be slightly different because there's roadworks going on. But what's going to be the same? Well, my boss is the same. That might be a good thing. It might be a bad thing. I don't know. I don't know your boss. But just going through that and just saying to yourself out loud, and I know it sounds silly, but just reminding yourself of this can really help you to prepare. So yeah, differences and same things, it can be really helpful. The other thing that I was going to come to is, and this is especially true if you're somebody that struggles with texture of clothes, is to, for goodness sake, wash your uniform, your new clothes, your new work shoes, whatever. Well, don't wash the shoes, that would be weird and maybe damaging, but wear them in. Wash the clothes, get them prepared. Don't wear them new on the day. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this video, you wouldn't have done that anyway, but maybe this is a revelation. Have them worn in. Wash them a couple of times. Wear them. You don't need to wear them all day, but just kind of wear them, I don't know, for an hour, one day, and just wear them in a little bit. So that A, you're familiar, and B, the fabric isn't that kind of crisp freshness. And the same with shoes, just wear them about the house for a little bit. It can be really helpful. And again, if you've got younger children, it might be really helpful to get them to practice putting their uniform on and taking it off and hanging it up and all those kind of self-care things. That's really useful, and it just gets them back into that routine. So one thing, and I mentioned this in the August self-care video, is plan in some really yummy activities or treats in those first few weeks of going back to school. And when you do, make sure they're things that are nourishing and not going to take energy from you, because another thing is not to expect too much of yourself in those first few weeks of going back to school or work. So any activities to be like really yummy things. So maybe it's like, okay, we're gonna get this film and we're gonna get some popcorn or whatever and snuggle down on that first Friday. Or maybe it's getting yourself a new book, or just something really yummy that really makes you feel like something to kind of look forward to. But again, just being careful with that choice so it's not something that really expends your energy. And I've just mentioned this, but just to reiterate it, not expecting too much of yourself and your children in those first few weeks. If you are somebody with children, maybe avoiding the extracurricular activities until, if you can, wait until, if you're here in the UK, that second half term. I usually, not that they do many anymore related to school, but I usually give them the first 5-6 weeks of just school. That was more so when they're younger. Now that they're a bit older, most of their things are at the weekend anyway, but it's just something to consider. And maybe if they have got weekend clubs, it might be that you pick a couple of dates when they don't go so that they can just resource themselves. Because extra sensitive kids need more time to decompress and integrate everything that's going on. because even like in the case of my youngest son, who's going back to a fairly similar situation to the last academic year, there's still a lot of new stuff and readjusting. So it's always good to have extra time. And I think that's it. So they are my thoughts. There's probably lots of other things that I could have mentioned. If you've got some thoughts and you want to pop them below, then that's really helpful to others. We will learn from each other. And just really to thank you for being here and for watching. I really appreciate your time. If you did enjoy this video, I'd love you to like the video, maybe share this with other people that may benefit. And if you're not subscribed yet, please join us. I share lots of things about self-care and other well-being tools for those that are extra sensitive. And yeah, I'd love to have you part of the community. All right, have a great transition back to school and work, and I will see you on the next video. Take care for now.